Heat advisory, 85. That's not come on. 115 maybe.
Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the August 6th, 2012 Washougal City Council meeting and invite you to please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Boger.
Here.
Councilmember Polinsky. Here. Councilmember Greenlee.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker. Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker did contact us this afternoon and let us know that he would not be in attendance this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we excuse Councilmember Shoemaker.
Hearing no objections, so ordered. Under amendments to the agenda, I would like to add an executive session to the end of our agenda this evening. The topic is on real property. No action will be anticipated after the executive session. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Okay. Rose, do we have any correspondence?
No.
Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to address council this evening? Okay, we're going to get rolling right into things. Consent agenda this evening we have consists of 3 items. The council minutes of July 16th, 2012, your workshop minutes of July 23rd, 2012, and your regular accounts payable claims in the amount of $724,044.42.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. And our first item under new business, Agenda Bill 4812, setting a public hearing for floodplain regulations update. Mitch.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilors.
Who's Joel?
This agenda bill before you is to set a public hearing for amendments to the Washougal floodplain regulations. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has updated the flood hazard data for our region, and the NFIP, or the National Flood Insurance Program, utilizes this information to provide your constituents with flood insurance. Consistent with federal regulations, when FEMA does have these updates, it is incumbent upon the communities to adopt that new information and reference the new maps accordingly. Failure to update or adopt these regulations will result in suspension from NFIP, which could lead to purchase, or property owners will not be able to purchase NFIP insurance. There are federal grants. Any federal grants in these areas would not be available. Disaster assistance, if there was a disaster in one of these areas, we would not receive federal assistance in that arena, as well as federal mortgage insurance or loan guarantees will not be provided in these areas. Proposed regulations proposes changes to our Washougal Municipal Code 1604015, which is the critical areas definitions, and particularly those that relate to flood hazard. In addition, there are proposed changes to our frequently flooded areas of the code under Washougal Municipal Code 1604060. The Planning Commission had their hearing on July 24th last month, and their recommendation to you was that City Council approve the proposed amendments to the Washougal floodplain regulations as presented by staff at the July 24, 2012 public hearing, and that was a unanimous vote. Just a reminder that there will be a more detailed discussion of the amendments at our August 13th work session. So the recommended action this evening is to make a motion to set a public hearing to take public testimony for August 20th, 2012 for the proposed amendments to the City of Washougal floodplain regulations.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to set the public hearing on floodplain regulations. Any comments from council? Questions?
I just wanted to put in the record in advance that my home is within that flood insurance area, and so having that insurance is not only important for me, but it's also an interest that I want to reveal.
Any other council comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mitch. Second item that we have is Agenda Bill 4912, amending the Washougal Municipal Code, Section 2.04.010, regarding council meetings and cancellations. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before you is a proposed ordinance which makes amendments to our code at Section 2.04.010. On the screen is a table that summarizes what the new paragraph that's proposed for the code would do. As you'll recall, the council requested that we come up with some language that would authorize the mayor to cancel meetings for lack of business or for, say, lack of a quorum. And we workshopped that recently, and the council directed that we provide for an appropriate notice, and that we also research with MRSC about the number of council members that could be involved in potentially overruling a cancellation, and there were some concerns about whether that be 3 or 4 council members and whether there'd be OPMA issues. So I will go through all of that as I cover this chart, and that item is part of the conversation. So what the proposal does is it deletes the specifics regarding your meeting times and location from the code. It's redundant in the code. It's contained very precisely in your rules, and so this change to the code will have no effect at all because your rules will cover, and it'll just continue to be the same Monday and meetings each week. What it does do in the next entry here in the table is just specify that there has to be at least 1 regular meeting per month, and that it provides for you to have workshops. This is just to be consistent with the RCW and just to mention the workshops. But again, your rules govern when you meet. New language authorizes the mayor to cancel a regular meeting or a workshop, provided that the RCW required minimum 1 regular meeting per month is maintained. It provides for a 6-day notice, so this would be new. We didn't have a specific notice the last time we talked about this. But 48 hours for lack of a quorum. And so I broke this into 2 pieces. 6 days seemed like an adequate notice to provide, but it would be the day after a meeting potentially, and then the next meeting would be 6 days later. There's nothing magic to that if you would like a different notice. And then 48 hours because potentially something could come up and we would find out about a lack of a quorum relatively late in the game prior to a meeting, and for that reason I thought a couple days would be good notice for that. So it provides a little bit of flexibility, but also provides that there be good notice. And then in terms of the overruling of a cancellation, we did communicate with OPMA, and although in the context of calling a special meeting there was a special exception, if you would, by the Attorney General that 4 councilors could discuss the notions of calling a special meeting. There is some specific statute about that, and they felt that that worked in that case. But in this case, getting together to discuss overruling a cancellation, because there's no statute that talks about that, they felt that that could be an OPMA problem, and so having 4 council members discuss that and then each chime in would be an OPMA problem, and they advised strongly that a 3-member requirement for overruling would be better and would be OPMA proof, if you would. And so the code proposes that, the change proposes that 3 council members could overrule a cancellation. And then what I did is just put in the specifics about how you would do that, how you would communicate to the clerk that you wanted to overrule the cancellation. And the language is identical to how we deal with special meetings about individually communicating. I just felt that that would be a great way for you to communicate the desire to potentially overrule. And then, of course, this last one is probably goes without saying, but I went ahead and put it in the code, and that is these notice requirements of 6 days and 48 hours are minimum notices. We might have information that would lead us to know that we are canceling a meeting 2 or 3 weeks in advance, and we would provide that notice if we could. And you could be convened at a regular meeting during that interim period, and by your own motion and vote at a council meeting, you could decide to overrule the cancellation. So I just sort of stating something that you could always do anyway, just to make it clear for folks who would be reading it. So those are the proposals. The big thing is that it would provide for cancellation and allow you to overrule that if you would like, and we'll provide adequate notice. At a future workshop, we'll talk about changing meeting times and going to less meetings or different times as per your request. And so the recommended action tonight is for you to read the ordinance by title only, and then to pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance amending Washougal Municipal Code 2.04.010 to provide for regular council meetings at least 1 per month and workshops, providing that the number, time, and place of the meetings and the workshops be determined by council rules of procedure adopted by resolution, and authorizing the mayor to cancel regularly scheduled council meetings and workshops with prescribed notice, and providing for council to overrule a cancellation.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
It's been moved and seconded that we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Council discussion? Jennifer?
Yes, I have a quick question. If you can go back to the slide where you were talking about the chart of the proposed changes. Thank you. Fourth one down on the left-hand side, you were talking about 6 days notice of cancellation required, or I'm assuming that's supposed to be an or 48 hours for lack
Right.
of a quorum?
48 hours if there's a lack of a quorum,
Okay.
for only that specific reason.
Well, I was wondering about that because quite often council members will notify, actually give less than 48 hours notice as far as not being able to attend a meeting. And there could also result as a lack of a quorum. And I just went back to check their council rules and procedures, and it really doesn't specify notice of any sort as far as notifying your inability to attend a meeting.
Correct. So what this would be is, if the mayor is going to cancel a meeting, and he was aware that it potentially should be canceled because of a lack of a quorum, he would have to provide 48 hours notice, but it doesn't require that such notice be provided by council members. It doesn't dabble into that part of it.
So he has to read minds?
Well, no, it just,
Most of you are very good about it, as long as you know that something's coming up, let us
Right.
know pretty well in advance.
Would that be something that could be dealt with by resolution? Maybe imposing a requirement on the council members to give notice as soon as they know they're not going to be able to attend?
you could, when we, if it's your pleasure to pass some changes in terms of meeting times, we could certainly add some language around notice for cancellation. You don't have to cancel a meeting in advance to not have a meeting because of lack of a quorum. what would happen is if there was late notice or last-minute notice or no notice at all, for, you know, an unusual circumstance, that could come up, and there's going to be an inability of the council to convene because of a lack of a quorum. You simply come together, determine that you won't be able to do it, and go home. So this only would be applicable if there was notice and the mayor decided to go ahead and cancel it in advance so that no one would even show up at all. Then he would have to provide 48 hours notice so that the public would know about it. But we can certainly take a look at putting something in the rules if that would make sense.
Yeah, I think to some degree we're worrying about a problem that doesn't exist. I can't remember when we've ever canceled a meeting because there was a lack of a quorum. We did terminate one because there was a lack of a quorum. But, and it would be an odd situation, I would think, where a council member where there would be a lack of a quorum and there hadn't been 48 hours notice. I can't, it's a problem. I just don't see that it happens. It's likely enough to happen that we need to fix it. Because the worst thing that happens is that people show up and there's not a quorum and you go home.
I'm just wondering if we, I'm sorry, I wasn't actually finished, but I was just wondering if we really need to include that, 48 hours for lack of a quorum. I mean,
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear.
If we really need to include that, I'm just concerned, I mean, if we just have 6 days notice of cancellation required, and that's if the mayor doesn't have an agenda at that point. I mean.
It could be for really any reason. The intent of this is for lack of business.
Right, not
but
quorum.
We'd also talked about, you know, if, for example, we knew in advance that because of a meeting that was important for some members to attend, and we knew 2 or 3 members were going to be gone, and then somebody became ill, and we or some family emergency came up and they had to go out of town. Rare circumstance, we knew a week in advance that we wouldn't have a quorum, the mayor could cancel the meeting. Right now, there's no provision for cancellation, so everyone would have to come in and then we'd sit around and go, oh, we're not going to meet. So we could certainly just have a 6-day notice requirement, and with that kind of good notice, the mayor could cancel a meeting. It would be basically for any number of reasons that could come up, but it will probably be because there's no business, or if we knew there was a lack of a quorum. If we find out there's a lack of a quorum with less than that notice, we wouldn't be able to cancel the meeting, but we would, you know, we would just come and then go home. So it's up to the council's pleasure, nothing special here.
I do.
His explanation makes sense.
I agree, and you know, when you look at it from that perspective, I can definitely see, you know, why it would be beneficial to have that in there. So. And I also concurred that the 3 council member number is sufficient for requesting an override or, you know, to have the meeting instead of canceling it.
Connie Jo?
I was not here the night this discussion happened, but I did listen to it on YouTube, and thank you to the IT staff for getting that up there so quickly, and Rose following through to make that happen for us. Can you run a scenario for me where 3 council members may overrule the cancellation? Why do we even, well, the resolution, I'm looking at the resolution, and whereas council finds that if 3 council members individually desire, or council, let's see, or council by its action at a regular meeting desires. I'm just wondering why we need that first sentence stating council finds that if there's 3 council members individually desire. It seems unnecessary. So talk me through it. Maybe I'll understand it like we just did with the 48-hour thing.
Sure. So that's a recital in the preamble to the ordinance, which is stating the council's intent behind the actual provision of the ordinance, which would be this would actually be what changes in the code. But we have these recitals that create a legislative history, if you would, to explain your intent. And so the conversation that I recall, I think it was Councilmember Shoemaker brought it up, is that there could be a time where the mayor, for lack of business, with notice, decides to cancel a meeting, and it could be that there's a topic that council members wanted to discuss, and they didn't want to wait, and so the way to do that would be to do it during council member comments, say, and there were 3 of you that were interested in sharing information or having a conversation about something at the meeting and feeling like you needed to be able to get together, you would be able to discuss that amongst yourselves, the 3 of you.
Are you saying more than 3 council members? 3 members would like to call the rest of the body together?
Yep.
Right, for a regular
Because at first, when I was
meeting.
listening to it, I was thinking if 3 members wanted to talk, go to coffee, you know, and then I realized, no,
This
they're
is-
talking about,
This is just to keep the
saying-
regular meeting.
okay, keep the meeting.
Keep the meeting.
That's what I thought. I just
Right.
ran that
And
past you.
Right, and there was no other guidance out there around how to make sure that we knew 3 of you wanted to meet. The only guidance is MRSC has some guidance when you call a special meeting. This has nothing to do with special meetings, but
Right.
we're borrowing that.
Maintaining the
We're
regular.
borrowing that, and they gave guidance that it should be individual communication, and it, fax, email, in person, in writing, by phone. So we just borrowed that.
Smoke signals.
We could, I don't know how to read them, but. So,
Morse code.
this, I believe that recital and that
makes
provision
sense.
answers Councilman
Yeah.
Shoemaker's concern that you never know, maybe the council still would want to meet. You ought to have an opportunity to sort of say, nah, let's meet anyway.
It's kind of a check and balance
Sure.
on the whole process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brent?
What happened if we go through the process and cancel a meeting, and then suddenly the next day something comes up that we need to meet after all? Having been in government for a while, I know that happens. We just probably, at that point, just have to go through a special meeting.
It's a
notice
special
for-
meeting route, I think, at that point.
Easy enough.
Other
Which is
questions?
what,
comments?
Mr. City Attorney?
The mayor could call it.
We
Actually,
I'm sorry. We just had that happen, actually, where that can be called by three council
4.
members? 4. Actually, there's one part of the statute says 3 and one says 4, so I guess we went the 4 route. on that.
MRSC advises the 4,
It could
but,
be called by a special meeting by 4 council members.
Or the mayor calls?
or the mayor,
Or the mayor.
or the mayor, right. So we don't lose our ability to meet if urgent city business would require the council to convene. This wouldn't
Could be done.
foreclose our ability to do this, the public's business if we really needed to.
There need to be 24 hours public notice and notice in the press.
There are, in the special meeting provisions, there are even provisions if it's such a emergency type scenario for, there to be basically as much notice as you can give,
Best notice available.
but you try to give 24 if you can.
Karen?
So 3 members decide that they want to hold the meeting. So they all come here, right, and have the meeting, but the mayor's not here.
No, what would happen-
Everyone would show up.
Oh, okay.
You would.
So
what-
is there a time, so for somebody who has little kids at home, yeah, so is there a time restriction? I mean, you guys can't call me at 5 and
Yeah. I didn't think about that piece. The mayor cancels a meeting with
Right.
6 days' notice,
Yeah.
and 5 minutes
I'm gone for
before
the-
it was going to happen.
Right.
3 council members come to the clerk and say, we want to overrule the cancellation. And then there wouldn't
And
be a
so-
quorum here, the mayor wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be able to do that. This does not provide for minimum notice
back to us.
Of a restarted, overruled,
I mean, I'm crafty. I can get babysitters on the fly, but I just wondered if,
You could bring them and just sit them
Right.
with us.
could you imagine? I just wondered
Could you
for, you know, because I wouldn't want to then be absent.
correct.
Sure, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
So,
Make it a minimum 72 hours prior? What, Paul?
Or 24.
The other thing is, if three people show up, three council members show up 5 minutes before the meeting and tell the clerk, we want to have a meeting, there's no quorum.
No. that
Right.
doesn't work.
There would be an overruling of the cancellation, but then you'd be in this sort of no man's land of, well, wait, it was canceled and nobody knew that it was overruled. And so I think we probably should have something in here. We either need to get really precise in here, or take a pause, don't adopt tonight, and what we could, and fix that piece and have something for you next time, or we could defer it to the conversation on changing the number of meetings that you have. We could do all of this in resolution. I could take this and put it into the resolution, but yeah, we could have that could be a tricky little situation.
Mr. Mayor?
Didn't think about that.
One of the other things I can see happening is if there's no notice, if the three show up, say, an hour before the meeting, and they say, we want to have our meeting anyway, there's no notice to the public or press.
Right.
Notified of that, and we're going to have
has to
we'll
be
be meeting by ourselves, and they could have, you know, one of the council members could have been walking down the street, or, you know, more realistically, they call in a fourth council member and say, well, be sure you're here. And suddenly you have a quorum, you can have a meeting, and then there's no public notice.
Right.
No notice to the other three council members.
That'd be inappropriate.
Right.
Yep, it's an
So-
excellent point. And
But I think this can be done by, in the resolution part of it. I don't think we need to defer this. I would prefer to go forward, but deal with it in the resolution.
In the rules?
Right, so what that would mean is this would hit the books and be effective in 5 days. You know, it'll be within the next couple of meetings or so that I would anticipate an action on a resolution, if it's the pleasure of the council to be changing your meeting times, and we could take care of it at that time. It does leave a very short window where something strange like this could come up, and that would be a little bit of a risk.
I
But,
won't participate in that.
right.
We won't go there now.
We won't cancel a meeting, and that way we can avoid that. So that'd be up to the council. You know, it just depends on how quickly you want to provide this discretion to the mayor. We can fix it in here and bring it back for a future meeting. You can adopt this now. We can take care of it later in the very near future.
From an administrative standpoint, really, one of the reasons that we were trying to move this direction is, one, just to make it easier on everybody, including the public and whatnot, when we don't have really true business to bring before you that requires us to get together. The other part of it, though, too, was to try and make the actual language in the code as innocuous as possible and defer most of it to your rules, just so that if we do amend these, change them, that type of stuff, we're not going back and actually changing the code, recodifying and doing all that work and just doing that on paper through your approvals or your rules. So even in that case, I could see it deferring to the rules.
Yeah, we could even back out some of this detail and defer to the rules. I mean, there's no right or wrong exactly where that balance point is about what's in the code or the rules, but this is not totally ready for prime time based on this matter that Councilwoman Plinsky brings up. So it's not perfect, and it's not totally ready for prime time. It's just, can you wait to fix it with a resolution? Or, I don't know, I don't think there's a rush for this particular item.
Except that it's happened, how many times this summer did it happen?
Twice.
Twice, which maybe it's just the summertime lull.
Is that unusual?
Yes.
That's unusual though, right? The short little 10-minute meetings?
I've been on council now
Yeah,
a little
but I
over
think
5
it will be more
years.
frequent. I think it
Dead of
will be more
summer,
frequent.
End of the year, depending on how budget goes.
They didn't hear
Right.
that.
Those are usually pretty quiet.
I've been on council, 5 years, and this This year is the first time that has happened, ever.
Part of why I think in the future that may happen more often is that some, what we might all call routine transactional business that would come before the council quite often has now been delegated to the mayor, small agreements and small contracts. Sometimes that's what was, on the agenda, small items like that. Have a hearings examiner now on the land use matters. So, up to the council's pleasure. Councilman Boger suggests that you pass this tonight and we'll take care of it with resolution. That works for me. If that works for you, and certainly commit to have that in front of you as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we can defer.
I just wanted to say, I'm fine with the ordinance as it's written. I think pretty much everything else can be cleaned up in the resolution. And just to get it done rather than postponed, I'd be in favor of that.
Well, at the moment, you have a live motion and a second on the floor to pass, post, and publish. So are there any other questions, comments from council? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I didn't know we had buttons on these microphones, so I've been speaking without it. But Mr. City Administrator, I'd like to suggest that, because a lot of this will be in resolution, and sometimes it's harder to find for a member of the public. Resolutions are, usually sitting in some binder somewhere collecting dust, and we don't know what they are. I think that this needs to be prominently displayed on our website so the public knows with the resolution what the meeting rules are. I don't know if it's already the case, but I think that's it.
Yeah, I know I've heard a lot of discussion on this topic on a resolution. I don't know of a resolution we're bringing forward. It would either be in the ordinance or it would be in our council rules.
The council rules are adopted by resolution.
Okay.
So there will be a resolution, and then the rules are an exhibit to the resolution.
Gotcha.
So, but yes, thank you for that input. I think it would be a good idea to make sure that our rules are prominent on the website if they're not already.
Okay, moving to our third item of new business, Agenda Bill 50-12, adopting an ordinance delegating authority to the mayor and the finance director to refinance police station bonds. Jennifer.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. As you know, we've been in the process of refinancing the voter-approved police bond debt to take advantage of the historical low interest rates. Our underwriter is advising that that council pass an ordinance tonight that will delegate authority to the mayor and I to enter into that agreement to refinance those bonds later in the week. Just with their schedules and our schedules, it didn't correspond to work well on a Monday night. We're most likely going to do that on August 14th or 15th. The refinancing will save the taxpayers at least $9,300 a year and over $100,000 in total. The industry benchmark is to achieve a net present value savings percentage of 3% or higher to justify the cost of the refinance, and a net present value savings percentage of 5% is considered excellent. At this point, our net present value savings is 8.6%, so as you can see, it's a great opportunity just with how low the rates currently are. The annual savings is not a huge number, but every little bit helps, and it's a direct savings for the taxpayers as it's a voter-approved bond, and they actually pay the bill. So the recommended action is to read the ordinance by title only and pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance of the City of Washougal, Washington, providing for the issuance and sale of unlimited tax general obligation refunding bonds of the city in the principal amount of not to exceed $1.1 million, to provide funds to refund certain outstanding unlimited general tax obligation bonds of the city, authorizing the appointment of an escrow agent, providing for the annual levy of taxes to pay the principal of an interest on the bonds, authorizing preliminary and final official statements, authorizing the mayor and finance director to approve the final principal amount interest rates, maturities dates, and principal maturities for the bonds, and providing for a negotiated sale of such bonds.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Council discussion? Paul?
I just wanted to extend my thanks to the finance and administrative staff. I know that there was, I suspect that there was a lot of skull sweat here and a lot of extra time. And so thanks for that. I know that this is something that was important not only to me, but to Councilman Shoemaker in terms of refinancing whatever we could or paying off whatever it made sense to pay. And this is a substantial refinancing. This is great work. Thank you.
What are the refinancing costs for this going to be? Do you have is there a number that we?
I don't have a breakdown of that yet. That would be in the final packet that we'll put together next week. It won't exceed the 1.1 million, and we currently owe, I believe, 1.085.
I mean, the actual the bond counsel costs. And this one.
I don't have those exact numbers. I know that the S&P report was $5,775 to reaffirm our AA- rating. So the council or those costs would have to be included in that 1.1 million.
I just wonder what kind of rates you're getting out of KL Gates.
I'll provide an update in an email after we do it all. That way you will see all those costs.
Okay, thank you.
Other council discussion, comments?
Yes, I have a
Jennifer?
question. Just because this was done before I was on the council, I'm just going over this, and I had a question on page 8-B-1.
I'm sorry, a little louder, please.
AB1, page AB1, 84. If you want to just go up, it's page 84 in your packet.
There you go. That
Exhibit
helps.
B, description of the refunded bonds. These are the new rates, correct? The 4%, 4.15, 4.25, 4.35, and
Those are the bonds being
progressive year.
redeemed, so those are the ones being refinanced.
Okay. And is that going to be the interest rate we're getting on these bonds?
No,
Those are what the bonds prescribe.
that's where they're
now.
currently at.
Oh.
I won't know the actual rate until we confirm it next
Okay.
week.
So that was
But that's
similar
where the
to
net
this.
present value savings comes in. The 3% is kind of like the wash, where the costs equal the savings. 5% is excellent, and he's estimating that it'll be at least the 8.96% net present value. Basically, you add in the cost of what it is to refinance and the benefit, and then that's where you get that percentage rating.
Mr. Mayor, have we been given like an anticipated rate or anything close in a range? Or?
Not yet, no, just the net present value rating.
Okay.
Okay, and on the original rates here, I noticed that there was a balloon payment in 2022.
That's when the bonds are done. And
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so will it be similar, or, I'm not sure.
the payment terms?
The payment terms, correct?
They'll be lower each year.
Right.
So it'll be amortized over the remaining years. It won't be any longer of a term, so they're going to amortize it over the remaining 10 years.
Okay.
But we've been, I guess to answer your question, we've been
Specs.
levying approximately $270,000 a year to pay it, so that large payment won't be there. I'm finally understanding your
Right, okay,
question. I
yes,
apologize.
because I was looking at the principal on the.
It won't be that
payments.
big at the end.
No, okay, good. All right, and then, of course, the exhibit C, D, and E are blank, but you're going to come back with these figures?
Right.
Okay. Okay. That's it, thanks.
So when we retire a police bond, and if we did an actual burning of the police bond, would we do the burning at the police department or at the fire department? Just kidding.
No comment?
No comment.
Other council questions, comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are now at that point in the agenda again for any members of the public that would like to address council. Martha?
Sorry, I had a hitch in my get along. I just wanted to, Martha Martin, Washougal. I wanted to thank the mayor and all of the council members who attended that. I think I told Sean it was exquisite, that ceremony on Friday for Pendleton. That was beautiful. First of all, walking into that area, it was in the center court where the old buildings are, the brick buildings. I saw Jennifer there, and Joyce and Paul, and I saw Brent. Yes, it was a wonderful day. And the ceremony and all of the things that took place. But it struck me as I stood back and watched it, it's like those old historical pictures that show the crowd and an event that occurs in history, and that 80 years from now that picture will be somewhere in some museum with all of you. So it was quite wonderful. Yes, Sean's looking a little alarmed.
Thought about that.
You looked good that day, Sean. He had his Pendleton jacket on and his pants and his tie, all made out of Pendleton products, but it was wonderful. And then Saturday I went down and just to see how the vendors were doing in the 100+ heat, and there were vendors and there were people, believe it or not, who came out, and the horses did their event. I was wondering about that, but they managed to do that. And then Saturday evening I went back down just to see what was going on with the entertainment, and there was Sean in there with his straw hat on, cooking food and looking like he'd really worked hard. So I just wanted to say thank you, Mayor Gard, for all that you put into this. It was a wonderful event for our city. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was just cooking because I was hungry. It's a barbecue. Any other members of the public wish to address council? Okay. Under Mayor's report, I do have a couple, 3 items for you this evening. The first one is on the weekend activities. My thanks again to all of the council and all of the staff that helped pull that together, in addition to all the volunteers that we had along the way. Martha, you're right. The presentation down at the ceremony down at Pendleton was a treat to be involved in. I had never really thought about the fact that someday we actually will be the old people that people are looking at in pictures back when. So, gee, I was having a good day. Now I'm feeling old. I do have the blanks that I'd like to show folks who were not there. For those of you not able to attend, Pendleton has a tradition, as many companies do when they dealt with our Native American peoples, of doing what they call a robing ceremony. And typically it is reserved for tribal elders that the company would do the robing. And they said early on, actually they didn't say, they just kind of had it in an agenda for the day that they were going to do a robing of the mayor, and I've been trying ever since to kind of get out of it because I wasn't sure exactly what any of that meant. Especially given the fact that we had a gentleman there who is a Native American, Chief Rudd Cloud's grandson, great-grandson, and is a Sioux Indian, and his mother, Sioux and Cherokee, his mother was a Cherokee Indian. And so my question to him at the time was, well, if you've got Buzz coming over, why don't you robe Buzz? It's American Indian, it goes with the traditions. And they said, but he's not an elder. It wouldn't be etiquette to robe him. That's an honor that they don't extend to them. So then I tried getting out of it by having our congresswoman or one of our senators there, and they said, well, that's not appropriate either because this is a ceremony we want to do for the elder of the community, and you are the elder of it needs to be you. So we ended up doing the robing, and I was invited down a couple weeks ahead of time to select the robe that I wanted to be robed in out of 2 of their different collections. And those of you that have gone down or ever seen they actually have a catalog of these. There are a number of different collections that Pendleton has, and we have many of them from different collections here on the walls. But they had one that popped out that they originally said the short name for it is the Storyteller. Go figure I'd pick that one. It is officially known as Keep My Fires Lit. And it is a robe that depicts one of the tribal elders around a campfire with some of the children around, telling the stories and the history of the tribes and the history of nature as they knew it. And the embers and the stars lead up into the constellations and the the star formations as they told in their stories. So I was very honored to receive that and be robed during the ceremony. Those of you that think my office walls are still Spartan after a couple of years, by next week I'll at least have the first piece of artwork in there, and we'll hang this one in the same fashion that we do the rest of the robes in the city. So that was kind of neat to get started with. And then we also picked up another blanket for City Hall. This one's also from their Heritage Collection. This is one that Pendleton produced 3 years ago for their 100th year in business as the Pendleton name itself. This last Friday was 100 years of Pendleton being in the city of Washougal. But in 2009, they hit 100 years as the company Pendleton Woolen Mills. This one is called The Spirit of the Peoples, and it has been a very positive one for them, or a very popular one for them. And what it depicts, all of these symbols, actually have meanings behind them. And this is one that was meant to convey all of the individuals that the Pendleton Company has ever touched. All of their employees, all of their directors, all the tribes, all the individual people, all their customers, all the communities that they work in. So I was happy to receive this one as well. And this one we will have mounted and become one of them into council chambers, and we'll redo some of the robes we have in here and move them around a little bit. So we have another piece of artwork for our collection.
Nice.
If you've never seen those catalogs, stop down and take a look. It is fascinating. And on the back of these, as you ever decide to go around City Hall, on the back of these actually have a tag that tells you what they are and what they mean. So you can get a little bit of history in there as well. But again, I think it was a wonderful celebration this weekend. It was only unfortunate the weather got so hot, but hey, the alternative was cold and wet, so I'll take the hot.
So these were both gifts to the city?
The city participated in acquiring this one for an additional piece within, and the other one was a gift outright to the city.
Nice.
We should have information back to council on the finances of the event and how everything went within the next week or so. So you'll have those coming back as well. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about the next couple of council meetings?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council, next week at your workshop, there'll be a number of items of preliminary business, but one of the items will be on the agenda at the request of Councilwoman Lindsay, which was and not to try to articulate exactly what you were looking for, but I believe in summary it is a conversation amongst council members about your visions or vision for the community and individual goals that you might have for the community as a council member, and basically a council conversation. And so I might turn to Council Member Lindsay at the start of that item and let you sort of carry that and facilitate that and kick off that conversation, if you would, and then we'll be here to be supportive as we can. So that will be happening next week, workshop only type scenario. But that actually dovetails very nicely into our meeting the following week on the 20th, when we will conduct some of our regular business, then take a quick break, and then we will leave chambers and we'll go over to the community center and then reconvene in a joint meeting, if you would, with the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, and you'll receive a presentation, an update presentation from the committee, and then have a conversation with them about perhaps some of the items that you talk about next week, as well as giving them guidance and feedback on what they present, and helping them as they continue to finalize a draft of the plan to bring to you later this year. So the timing of all of that works out really well, and so in preparation for those meetings, perhaps you'd want to be just thinking about how you might engage next week in that conversation, and then We will get you in advance the presentation materials, part of the packet for the 20th meeting, so that that can be a fruitful conversation for you as well. And I know that the advisory committee is looking forward to being able to engage with you on that. There'll be a couple key members of the group that have stepped up to lead the presentation, along with Trevor, the staff that's working on that. So just a couple highlights of what will be happening here over the next couple of weeks.
And just information for council, next Monday I am unable to be here for the meeting. Jennifer, hopefully you'll be here. I definitely want to hear what council members have, and this is one of those meetings that I would almost cut one of my feet off to be here, but we have a event happening over in Portland that is for a good friend of ours who has a horrible health condition and trying to raise some significant money, and it's one of those that just won't be here next Monday. I apologize. Two other quick items for Finance Council. We do have a entry conference with the State Auditor's Office on the annual audit that is scheduled for the 14th of this month at 11 a.m. here at City Hall. So those members of the Finance Council are invited to be here. And then the final item, I wanted to do a real quick update in regards to trains. I did have a meeting last week with John White, one of the principals at Burger ABAM. 14th.
No, the finance committee?
No, our finance committee.
That's what it was, the 14th of 11th.
Oh,
Yep.
it says 14th?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I had a conversation last week down at the port with John White from Burger ABAM. It really was to talk about potash trains, and Burger ABAM did a lot of the permitting for the Port of Vancouver. Those permits have now been issued. One of his concerns, and he wanted to make sure and clarify and try and get some information out, I believe in the conversation that we had, or the presentation that we had from the Port of Vancouver, golly, probably a year ago, there was a number of trains in there in regard to the potash that were working up towards the 20 to 40 that we were hearing, and some other things as well. John's just afraid that all of that train traffic is going to, no matter what those trains are carrying, is going to get lumped in with coal trains and all of that stuff. In reality, I believe the number he told me was the permits are for 2 million tons of potash per year. I believe it was 2 million tons, which equates out to 1.8 trains per day. 2 trains, not 20. Even if for some reason they were to receive an extension that would double that, we'd be talking 4 trains a day, not 20. So I just wanted to make sure and put that to bed, and it was a good conversation to have with John, so that, in my head, I'm not adding up that we've got 40 trains a day, potentially 40 more of potash, potentially 40 more, and going on up.
Mr. Mayor, who was John working for?
Burger ABAM.
And they're working for the port?
Correct.
Actually, for the ports.
Both Camas and
Camas Washougal, but also Ridgefield.
What about, I thought they're working for Vancouver.
Well, this conversation was specifically on the potash terminal that's in Vancouver. BH Billington. So, a little bit of good news on less trains a day than what we were anticipating. Those are the only items that I have, items from council members. Kind Joe?
Couple questions. No, one's a question, one's a statement. I noticed at the top of J Street and 49th, there's a sign saying that there's going to be a delay up there on September 10th. I don't know what that is.
No, August 9th.
I meant August.
This week?
It's changed to the 10th, though. You'll notice
Oh, it
when
is?
you go home tonight. Yeah, what is that going on?
That's basically some of the resurfacing that we're doing after all the upgrades to the water lines, everything up that direction, the
Okay.
fire hydrants. We're going to try and make those roads a little prettier.
Nice. Love it. Just a quick update that Thursday was our Regional Fire Authority meeting. We had guests from the Riverside Fire Authority. Great information. So I just want to let you know that that's moving forward in discussion. And lots of people have homework. I'm looking at you. So, moving forward. Thank you.
Items from Joyce?
Well, the Parks Board met this week, and there's a couple of things that I think of interesting. The Hathaway Park boat launch construction started today, and Eldridge Park Bridge construction begins Wednesday, and the bridge will connect Camden Creek Park with Eldridge Park. So these are two positive things for our park system, and we're all very excited about it.
Thank you. Brent?
I also was at the RFA meeting on the Regional Fire Authority, and I found that a very interesting discussion. The issues and the complexities of it are going to be more complex than I thought, and when I got the appointment for this position, I said I needed to consolidate. And I'm not going to be scared away by complexities, but, you know, they're all things that have to be dealt with. It's not going to be easy, but, you know, something we have to explore. I enjoyed, like Sean said, I enjoyed the Pendleton event. I enjoyed seeing him getting robed in, what was it, 90-degree weather.
It was pretty warm.
Yeah, pretty warm. The event was great. I missed the Kids and Critters Parade. My cats refused. They said they didn't feel like it. So, other than that, it was a good week.
Thank you.
I have one more comment. Sitting in Reflection Park, listening to the music on a hot summer evening was an absolute delight, with all the different people from Washougal coming in, and just, it was a very good community event, and anybody that missed it missed a good time.
Paul?
I just wanted to mention, in a conversation with Larry Paulson, now retired as director of the Port of Vancouver, he said that they're planning, he wanted to be conservative in the sense of saying more trains than fewer would be, and he was saying 3 was what they were targeting, and that because of capacity limitations with what they're building at the Port of Vancouver, it could go to 5, but it was hard to believe it could go to 6. I particularly wanted to pass on, maybe through the administrator, special thanks to Suzanne Grover, our Parks Director, for she's the one who went to a lot of trouble to get the grant to make that boat launch renovation possible. She's been doing a great job on that. She's sends out lots and lots of grants, and she gets a few of them. So special thanks to Suzanne on that. I was here for Friday for the festival. I went to the Pendleton event, which was wonderful. I truly enjoyed it. And then I was here for Friday night for the music and the people in Reflection Plaza. But then we have had reservations to see Alison Krauss at Maryhill. We made those reservations 6 months ago, long before this event was planned. One of the things that intrigues me about going to concerts at Maryhill is actually at the other gateway to the gorge. It's the eastern gateway to the gorge scenic area, as we are the western. And every time I've gone to a concert there, every artist, every performer has taken a moment on stage to kind of look around and say, my goodness, what an amazing place you people live in. Do you really understand what you have here? And so, I mean, that reminds me of exactly that we are truly fortunate to live here in this truly outstanding place and time. And I'm very thankful for all of that.
Thank you, Paul. Other items, Jennifer?
Yes. As others have mentioned, the Pendleton ceremony Friday morning was fantastic. I did not think it was too hot. I guess I still have thin blood. Not a problem for me. But no, I thought it was amazing. My daughter, who's 10, accompanied me to the ceremony because I promised her cake, which she did get. But no, when she got there and saw that there was a real live Indian, she was just enthralled, Native American. And so she had many pictures taken with him, and that will be the very first thing that she takes to school for show and tell on the first day of school will be the photo with a real live Native American. She was so excited, and he was very gracious. So, and then I went on a tour afterwards through the mill, which I've seen several times before, but it's always fun. They have updated and come into the 21st century, and now that they have headsets and microphones, you can actually hear the tour guide as you go through, as the machines are continue to run. So it's wonderful. It's a fantastic tour, and I highly recommend it if you haven't been through it. We also attended the both evenings of the Beer and Wine Garden and the wonderful Carrie Cunningham performances for the different bands and such, and it was wonderful as well. And thank you very much for putting that together, Mayor. That was fantastic. We also participated in the Kids and Critters Parade. Yes, I know, Anne. Thank you. Thanks to you and Elisa Volz for putting that together as well, and going all out to put little goodie bags together for the kids. That was fantastic. And my dogs, I had 2 dogs participate, and they were both, you know, just chugging right along. There weren't any unusual animals. We were considering bringing a chicken, but we were a little bit worried about what would happen with the other dogs that were there. My dogs are fine with my chickens, but other animals, we weren't really sure what would happen. It could have been a disaster. So that was a no. So no, we had a fantastic time, and I hope to see more events like this. I've always been in support of city events, and whether it's entirely sponsored or whether the city puts forth some effort, I've always been in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce?
Dogs in tutus are always a delight.
I was wondering about that big fire dog that was walking that other dog. That looked a little odd. But anyway. Other items from council?
One more thing, 2 more things. We attended the Clark County Fair, and it's really wonderful. And they have a baby lion that you can hold. It's 8 weeks old, so you animal lovers, you need to go do that. And I know this other comment is preaching to the choir, but don't forget to vote.
Where is the lion?
Where is the lion? The end where the pirate theme was. Yeah, he's right in that.
It was actual lion?
Oh, yeah, actual live 8-week-old baby. A beauty. Oh, I wanted to take that little thing home.
We're going.
Could have been in the parade.
We're going.
It's not allowed in city code.
Oh, shucks.
I'll just say for council comments that I was extremely sad that I was not here this weekend. I have been busy with family priorly planned events since Thursday, so I missed all the fun. But I was keeping track on Facebook of people that I know that live here that are on Facebook. So put us down next year for cooking, pouring, or whatever, because my husband's a great cook. So I can't wait for next year. And I have a whole entourage for the Kids and Critters parade. And they love to dress Maggie up. And Maggie doesn't do well with chickens.
Awesome. Well, thank you for letting us know about the lion. All the time, I tell you, we see pictures in the paper or on TV and all, and they always look so cute. And I'm like, so there's one that you can hold.
And there's no fee. There's just a little line, and you get to hold him for all of about a minute or 2, pet him, and
that'll be enough.
It's fun.
Very
He's
cool.
beautiful.
Thank you for passing that along.
I actually read in the paper where they have a bunch of baby pigs that were recently born, so they have little baby pigs.
I saw them.
And there's a cow that's due any day. So if you go today, they might not be here, but then you go tomorrow, there might be a baby cow. So. Yeah.
Great.
Any other items from council?
I am actually going to go around with some of the water people in the morning to get a little more information on our water systems. And I meant to send that out to, so if anybody wants to join me, I'm doing that at 8 a.m. Like I said, I meant to send that out to my fellow counselors, but I have been out of town, and I didn't take my iPad.
I'm planning a trip too. I haven't got the date confirmed, but I'll send that out in case anybody else wants to join me. I can't go tomorrow, though. I have to suffer tomorrow at Wild Waters. Wild Waves. Yeah, it's water with waves.
I know Brent was
Wild Waves.
interested also in doing a tour. So. Oh, you did?
Brent and I went
I forgot
Friday.
I forgot to report on that. Joyce and I did a tour, and it was great. I didn't know the extent of our public utility systems, so. Did it Friday. Hot.
Any other items from council? Okay, if not, we're going to take a small, not quite adjournment, but we'll convene into executive session. Again, I'm estimating 30 minutes, no action to follow on the topic of real property. Don't know. Therein could be a question.
Potential, it has to be potential acquisition or else.
It has to be something more specific to real property.
I would say it's potential.
Yeah, it is. I have a vague idea.
I would say it's potential. If Mr. Scott, Mr. English, and Mrs. Forsberg will stay in the room, I hate to kick everybody else out of the room, but the only other option we really have is Dave's office. And when it's 90 degrees outside, it is 105 in Dave's office. So if we're going to be here for half an hour, we're going to be comfortable. Rose, if you could make sure and disable the system, and we'll just make good notes on when we come back in to adjourn.